Weeks for weeks after weeks, and the girl never returned to the floor. We've seen her turn up the ratings in golf. We've seen her turn up the ratings in basketball and the NFL, and all of these things transcend the sport like we have never, ever, ever seen before.
Women's basketball undeniably has exciting young talent, and that much is true. But what's also becoming impossible to ignore is what the numbers are clearly showing right now. Without Caitlin Clark actively on the floor, the entire ecosystem starts to collapse. This isn't a slow or gradual decline. It's a free fall that's visible at every level of the sport, from college arenas to professional leagues to brand new ventures that were supposed to revolutionize the game.
A head coach, and this shows you that people aren't really interested anymore. UCLA women's basketball coach. Now, UCLA is one of the best teams in the country, a potential national championship winner. UCLA women's basketball coach Corey Close said that I from Los Angeles, not in Columbus, was the only media member to talk with her after UCLA's win in Ohio State. Close said she didn't mind if I printed her response, so here it is in full. The coach said, honestly, if I'm being really blunt with you, the energy in the building was great, but having no media here at all for either team, or either no AP, no nothing, says a lot.
This isn't hyperbole. This is a Division I head coach sounding the alarm. UCLA's Corey Close publicly called out the complete lack of media coverage at a ranked matchup, and it should stop everyone in their tracks. UCLA versus Ohio State, both teams ranked. The only double-ranked women's college basketball game in the entire country that day. And not a single media member showed up to cover it. Not one reporter, not one beat writer, not one local journalist. Nobody. Close didn't say this casually or in passing. She made it clear she didn't mind if the comments were printed because she wanted people to understand just how serious the situation has become. This is January 2025 conference play. Two legitimate national championship contenders, and the media treated the game like it didn't exist. 1 year ago, when Caitlin Clark was still at Iowa, matchups like this would have been packed with press. Reporters would have been fighting for credentials. Now, silence. Crickets.
Creator perspective. When you put up unrivaled, ain't nobody watching. Nobody's checking for it. I'm telling you, I see it on all the content creators' side that people are not showing real interest in Unrivaled. Now, maybe once the games start, some things will pick up, but people aren't showing an interest in watching Unrivaled content. Unrivaled's promo, I don't know, they did way more promo last year. And it just doesn't seem like the actual interest from the people is there to watch.
It's not just college basketball facing this problem. Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 league that was supposed to change everything, is running into the same issue. It launched last year with massive fanfare, big names, serious financial backing, and a revolutionary concept designed to keep WNBA stars active during the offseason while giving them real equity in a league they could actually own. Last year, the promotional push was everywhere. If you followed women's basketball at all, it was impossible to miss. This year, that visibility has fallen off a cliff. Content creators who regularly cover women's basketball are all saying the same thing. The clicks aren't there, the engagement is gone, and the interest has noticeably cooled. And there's one critical detail that can't be ignored. Caitlin Clark isn't participating in Unrivaled. That absence is glaring, because what the league desperately needs right now is exactly what Clark brings. Eyeballs and casual fans who tune in specifically to watch her play. Without her, Unrivaled is struggling to generate the kind of buzz it needs to maintain real momentum.
Head coach saying that no media is showing up to cover the games anymore. Without Caitlin Clark, women's basketball is dying, bro. And if I see change, I will come out and say, hey, I was wrong. I'll say that. I don't have too much pride for that. But the way it's going now, nobody's interested. This here is on Awful announcing. Caitlin Clark has the most to lose from a WNBA lockout. Here it says, will there be a WNBA season? While nothing is certain, fans and ownership.
Now let's talk about the WNBA itself, because this is where things become truly complicated. The league is currently in the middle of collective bargaining agreement negotiations, and the Players Association has authorized its executive committee to call a strike if those talks fall apart. That creates a very real possibility that the 2026 WNBA season doesn't happen at all. Not delayed, but canceled outright. Consider what that would mean for Caitlin Clark specifically. She already missed most of the 2025 season due to multiple injuries, and if the 2026 season is wiped out by a lockout, that's nearly a year and a half without competitive basketball. A year and a half with the momentum she built, the casual fans she pulled in, and the mainstream attention she generated all sit idle. And in sports, momentum doesn't pause, it evaporates. As the article makes clear, everyone loses in a lockout scenario. Owners lose game day revenue at a time when ticket demand has never been higher. Players lose exposure just as new sponsors are starting to pay attention, and fans lose access to high-level competition. But Caitlin Clark stands to lose the most because her brand, her cultural relevance, and her ability to transcend the sport all depend on her being visible, playing, and doing the very things that made her a phenomenon in the first place.
All these awesome players that we like, Olivia Miles at TCU, Hannah Hidalgo at Notre Dame, Tanaya Latson at South Carolina. UConn is back dominant. Ava Hayden and Chit Chat and Hannah Stokey at Iowa. None of these teams are moving the needle. When you create content about these things, people aren't that interested. I'm just keeping it real. Even from a fan perspective, it doesn't seem like people are that interested in these teams, in these players, etc.
And this is where the college basketball situation becomes even more revealing. Because the issue clearly isn't a lack of talent. Hannah Hidalgo is putting up huge numbers at Notre Dame. Juju Watkins was dominating at USC before injury. Olivia Miles is back and healthy at Notre Dame. Paige Buchers is fully healthy again at UConn. Kiki Irifen has transferred to USC. Angel Reese is at LSU. These are elite players, future WNBA stars, the exact type of talent that should be driving national interest and viewership. Yet the numbers haven't followed. The reason is uncomfortable but hard to deny. A large portion of the audience that showed up during the Caitlin Clark era wasn't there for women's basketball in the abstract. They were there for her. Some of that was her playing style, the logo threes, the vision, the non-stop competitive edge. Some of it was her personality and relatability. Combined, those elements created a singular, magnetic draw that the sport is still struggling to reproduce without her at the center.
Playing a bunch of bums and cupcakes, and I love Malaysia Fuwiley. She ain't played against a legit player yet. They're not playing anybody. So maybe things for women's college basketball will pick up once conference play starts. The injury to Juju Watkins definitely did not help. But I also feel like a lot of people were clinging on to Juju Watkins. Why? Because they wanted to say and feel she's better than Caitlin Clark. It still was tied into Caitlin Clark. And now that that is removed, nobody's really challenged.
LSU is ranked in the top 5 nationally right now, with Malaysia Fuwiley, an incredibly talented guard with NBA-level athleticism. But they're stuck playing cupcake schedules, piling up blowout wins against overmatched opponents. Even when LSU does face competitive teams, the viewership just isn't there. The same thing is happening at UConn. They're back to their familiar dominance, rolling through opponents like they always have, but dominance without a compelling rival, without someone like Caitlin Clark pushing them, without that built-in narrative tension. Simply isn't compelling television for casual fans. The hardcore women's basketball audience will always show up. Fans who love the sport for its fundamentals, team play, and player development are still watching. But that audience was never large enough on its own to sustain the kind of growth the sport experienced during Clark's final college season. The explosion in ratings, the sold-out arenas, and the constant mainstream media attention. That level of growth required something more. It required a transcendent star. And right now, women's basketball doesn't have one actively playing.
The fans, we need Caitlin Clark playing in games. We need competitive hoops. That's what we need right now. Here it says, all of them would lose something, but no one would lose as much as Caitlin Clark. I will admit that I do not understand what has made Clark the singular force muscling the WNBA into top culture discussions. How does anyone like shoot it from the logo? Basketball is boring. It has made every level of both men's and women's. Words, drive to the bucket, get put on your ass like an adult, or get on my TV screen. It says, what I think doesn't matter, though. I'm not a fan of Steph Curry either, but just like Curry, Caitlin Clark has become famous for being able to sink a shot from anywhere and parlay that fame into her own brand. Forget Curry. Nike clearly sees Jordan's potential in the CC brand. That was made clear by the Christmas Day ad, which featured a ton of star cameos and a pretty sick logo. Caitlin Clark is not the best player in the WNBA. I disagree. That's clearly Asia Wilson. I disagree. But Caitlin Clark is the biggest brand in basketball right now. The WNBA is full of stars, but her presence has pushed the league's growth into overdrive. What happens to that brand if she goes a year and a half without being on the court? Remember that Clark missed most of the 2025 season with multiple groin injuries. All right, so this is just laying out for you that, Caitlin Clark has more to lose than anybody from not playing in the 2026 season, and the game needs her. Man. So at the end of the day, it is me looking at the landscape and what's going on. I can clearly see that the game is dying out. The interest in it, in terms of people wanting to watch, media, the viewership on YouTube, all of that stuff is tanking in left field without Caitlin Clark. And that is just as real as it gets, man. Get down in the comments and let me know what you...
So let's synthesize what we're actually looking at here, because this isn't just about one player. This is about what happens when a sport becomes overly dependent on a single draw. And then that draw is removed from the equation. The lack of media at the UCLA-Ohio State game wasn't an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a much broader reality. Without Caitlin Clark in the picture, women's college basketball has largely reverted to its pre-Clark media footprint. Minimal national coverage, mostly regional attention at best. National outlets have moved on. Beat reporters aren't traveling. And the infrastructure that briefly existed to comprehensively cover these teams has largely evaporated. That's brutal for players like Hannah Hidalgo and Kiki Iriefin, who are doing everything right, playing at an elite level, and still can't generate the automatic attention Clark received. The unrivaled situation is especially revealing because it shows how audiences actually behave. The league has real star power. Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier founded it. Angel Reese is playing, Eric Ogunbo is there, but household names within the WNBA community is a much smaller circle than household names in broader American sports culture. Caitlin Clark crossed into that second category. She was being mentioned on NFL broadcasts, showing up at PGA Tour events, and visibly moving ratings. She became a cultural figure beyond basketball. Unrivaled needed someone with that level of crossover appeal to attract casual viewers, and without her, it's struggling to break through the noise. Now add the CBA negotiations and potential lockout, and the picture becomes genuinely alarming for the league's long-term trajectory. The WNBA just had its best season ever in terms of attendance, viewership, and mainstream relevance. A huge part of that surge was Caitlin Clark's rookie season. Even though she only played 13 games before injuries ended her year, the buzz, the debate, the controversy, the records, all of it pulled in casual fans who had never watched a WNBA game before and suddenly wanted tickets to see the Indiana Fever. If the 2026 season is canceled due to a lockout, that momentum doesn't slow down. It dies. Casual fans have short attention spans and endless entertainment options. They won't wait a year and a half. They'll move on. And when the league eventually returns, it will be starting from scratch trying to rebuild that casual audience. The hardcore fans will come back, but there's no guarantee the Clark-driven audience does. Here's the uncomfortable truth the article hints at. Caitlin Clark is not the best player in the WNBA. Aya Wilson is the MVP, a champion, and the most dominant player in the league. That isn't debatable. But dominance and cultural relevance are not the same thing. Wilson is universally respected and beloved within basketball circles, but she doesn't move a needle for casual fans the way Clark does. That's not a criticism. It's simplest possible moment. The sport needs Caitlin Clark playing basketball, not just doing commercials, not making appearances, not playing golf, but actually competing at the highest level. Because right now, the evidence is overwhelming. Without her on the court, the casual audience is checked out, the media has moved on, and the window to build on last year's momentum is closing fast. So here's the question that really matters. If the WNBA loses the 2026 season to a lockout and Caitlin Clark goes a year and a half without competitive basketball, can the sport recapture that momentum when she returns? Or will that audience be gone for good? Based on what we're seeing across every level of the game right now, the answer to that question should terrify anyone who cares about the future of women's basketball.